Imagine you're standing in the grand ballroom of the Riverside Hotel, one of the most exclusive venues in Manhattan. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm golden glow over hundreds of guests in tuxedos and evening gowns. A live band plays soft jazz in the corner. The air smells of expensive perfume and champagne. This is the annual Sterling Foundation Charity Gala, where billionaires and celebrities gather to raise millions for children's hospitals. You're sipping champagne, making small talk when something catches your eye. Near the edge of the room, partially hidden behind a marble column, stands a teenage boy who clearly doesn't belong here. He's wearing jeans and a faded hoodie. His dark hair is messy, like he just ran here. But that's not what makes you stare. It's his right arm. Or rather, the absence of it. His right sleeve hangs empty, pinned at the shoulder. The boy isn't looking at the guests, or the elaborate ice sculptures, or the tables loaded with gourmet food. His eyes are locked on something across the room. You follow his gaze. He's staring at the grand piano sitting on the stage, its black surface gleaming under the spotlight. There's something in his expression. Hunger, longing, desperation, like a starving person looking at a feast through a window. He takes a step forward, then another. He's moving toward the stage with purpose, now weaving between guests who don't even notice him. His left hand is clenched at his side. You can see his chest rising and falling with rapid breaths. Who is this kid? How did he get in here, and why is he walking toward that piano like his life depends on it? Then you see the security guard notice him. A large man in a dark suit straightens up, speaks into his wrist radio, and starts moving in the boy's direction. The boy sees him too. He freezes for just a moment, then walks faster. He's almost running now. The guard calls out. Heads start to turn. The band doesn't notice, still playing their smooth jazz number. But now dozens of eyes are following this strange teenager with one arm as he climbs the 3 steps onto the stage. He reaches the piano, places his left hand on its surface like he's touching something sacred, closes his eyes for just a second. Then the security guard's hand lands on his shoulder. The music stops. The entire ballroom falls silent. Every single person is watching now. The boy turns to face the guard, and you can see his face clearly for the first time. He's maybe 17, with deep brown eyes that are currently filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "Son, you need to come with me," the guard says, not unkindly. "You can't be up here." But before the boy can respond, another voice cuts through the silence. A voice that carries authority and wealth. "Wait." Everyone turns. Walking toward the stage is Richard Sterling himself, the billionaire, the man whose name is on the building. He's in his late 50s, silver-haired, wearing a tuxedo that probably costs more than most people's cars. He climbs onto the stage with the easy confidence of someone who owns the room, which technically he does. Sterling looks at the boy with curiosity, not anger. "What's your name, son?" The boy swallows hard. "Ethan, sir. Ethan Brooks." "And what are you doing on my stage?" "Ethan Brooks." The entire ballroom holds its breath. You can hear the ice clinking in someone's glass 3 tables away. The boy's voice is barely above a whisper, but in the silence, everyone hears him. "I want to play the piano, sir." For a moment, nobody moves. Then someone in the crowd laughs. Not a kind laugh, a mocking one. Others join in. The sound ripples through the room like a wave. How can a kid with one arm play piano? It's ridiculous. But Sterling holds up his hand, and the laughter dies. He's still studying the boy's face. You want to play my piano? Yes, sir. With one hand. Yes, sir. Sterling's expression is unreadable. How did you even get in here? This is a private event. Tickets cost $10,000. Now the boy looks down. His voice drops even lower. My dad works here. He's the night janitor. I came with him. I wasn't supposed to leave the service area, but I heard the music and I had to see the piano. More murmurs from the crowd. You can hear the judgment in their voices. Janitor's kid. Trespassing. One arm. This is getting embarrassing. But something shifts in Sterling's expression. He glances at the security guard. Jim, do we have a janitor named Brooks working tonight? The guard speaks into his radio. After a moment, he nods. Yes, sir. James Brooks. He's been with us for 3 years. Perfect record. Sterling turns back to Ethan. Does your father know you're up here? Ethan shakes his head, and now you can see the fear creeping into his eyes. Fear that he's about to get his father fired. No, sir. Please don't. This isn't his fault. He told me to stay in the break room. I couldn't help it. You couldn't help wanting to play piano. No, sir. Sterling studies him for a long moment. Then he does something nobody expects. He smiles. Not a mocking smile. A genuine one. I'll make you a deal, Ethan Brooks. You can play my piano. But if you waste everyone's time here, if you make a fool of yourself and me, you and your father are leaving this building and never coming back. Understood? The boy's eyes go wide. You'll let me play. I'll let you try. 30 seconds. If I like what I hear, you can keep going. If I don't, you stop immediately. Deal. Ethan nods so hard you think his head might fall off. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. But before Sterling can step back, a new voice interrupts. The band leader, a middle-aged man with silver temples and an expensive suit, steps forward. Mr. Sterling, with all due respect, this is highly irregular. We have a program to follow. And frankly, I don't think it's appropriate to let some random kid interrupt a professional performance. Especially, he glances at Ethan's missing arm, especially when it's clearly not possible for him to actually play. The room tenses. You can feel the divide happening. Some people nod in agreement with the band leader. Others look uncomfortable, unsure. Sterling's jaw tightens. But before he can respond, another person stands up from one of the tables. A woman in an elegant black dress, maybe in her 40s. She walks with a slight limp, and as she approaches, you notice something. Her right leg from the knee down is a prosthetic. I disagree, she says firmly. Her voice carries military authority. I'm Sarah Williams, former Army sergeant, current head chef at Riverside. I lost my leg in Afghanistan. Does that mean I can't cook? Should we judge people's abilities by what they're missing instead of what they have? Someone else stands up. A police officer in uniform here as a guest. She's right. My daughter was born deaf. She's now a professional dancer. Never assume someone can't do something just because they're different. More voices now. The room is dividing. Some supporting Ethan. Others skeptical. The tension builds until Sterling raises his hand again. Here's what we're going to do, he announces. Ethan gets his 30 seconds. Then we'll let the room decide. Fair enough. The band leader doesn't look happy, but he nods curtly and steps back. The crowd settles, some crossing their arms, others leaning forward with curiosity. Sterling gestures to the piano bench. It's all yours, son. Show us what you've got. Ethan walks to the bench on shaking legs. He sits down, adjusts his position. The empty right sleeve of his hoodie hangs down beside him, a stark reminder of what everyone is thinking. How can anyone play piano with just one hand? His left hand hovers over the keys. It's trembling. You can see sweat on his forehead despite the air conditioning. The entire ballroom is silent now. Hundreds of eyes watching, waiting, many expecting him to fail. Ethan closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, and whispers something so quiet that only the people closest to the stage can hear it. "This is for you, Mom." Then his fingers touch the keys, and everything changes. The first notes that come from the piano are soft, hesitant, a simple melody in the key of C. Nothing impressive. Some people in the crowd start to shift uncomfortably. 30 seconds. That's all he gets. Better make it count. But then something shifts. Ethan's left hand begins to move with more confidence. The melody gains strength. He's playing a piece you recognize, vaguely something classical but simplified. It's competent, pleasant even. But is it enough to justify this interruption? You glance at Sterling. The billionaire's expression is neutral, arms crossed, watching carefully. The band leader looks vindicated, already preparing to stop this. 15 seconds down. 15 to go. Then Ethan does something unexpected. His left hand suddenly jumps across the keyboard, hitting bass notes with his pinky and ring finger, while the melody continues with his thumb and index finger. It's a technique you've never seen before. He's playing two parts at once, with one hand creating a fuller sound than should be possible. The crowd notices. The shifting stops. Eyes widen. Sterling uncrosses his arms. 20 seconds. Now Ethan's hand is flying across the keys. The simple melody transforms into something more complex. Jazz chords, syncopated rhythms. His fingers dance between high and low registers so fast it almost looks like two hands playing. His body sways with the music, and you can see his face has transformed. The fear is gone. This is where he belongs. 25 seconds. The piece builds to a crescendo. Ethan leans into the piano, his whole body involved now. His left arm moves with practiced precision, hitting note combinations that shouldn't work but somehow do. The sound fills the ballroom. Rich, full, impossible. 30 seconds. Sterling doesn't signal to stop. Nobody moves. Ethan keeps playing, and now he transitions into something else. A jazz standard. Autumn Leaves, but played in a way that makes it sound brand new. His hand moves with such speed and precision that several people in the crowd lean forward trying to understand how he's doing it. At the 45-second mark, Sterling finally raises his hand. Ethan sees it and stops immediately. His hand freezes over the keys. The last note hangs in the air. Then silence. For 3 long seconds, nobody moves. Nobody breathes. Then Sterling starts to clap. Slow, deliberate applause. Sarah Williams joins him immediately. Then the police officer. Then more people. Within seconds, half the room is applauding. The other half sits in stunned silence. The band leader's face is complicated. Surprise, skepticism, and maybe a touch of respect, fighting for control. He walks over to the piano, studying Ethan's hand position. "Where did you learn to play like that?" he asks. Ethan's voice is shaky again, the confidence from the performance fading now that he's back in reality. "YouTube, mostly. And practice. A lot of practice." "YouTube," the band leader repeats like he can't quite believe it. "No formal training." "No, sir. We can't afford lessons." Sterling steps closer. "How long have you been playing?" "Since I was 7. 10 years. And you've never had a teacher?" Ethan shakes his head. "Just videos. And my mom before she died. She played piano. She was teaching me when I was little before the accident." The word accident hangs in the air. Everyone's eyes go to his missing arm. Sterling's expression softens. What accident, son? Ethan looks down at the keys. His left hand touches them gently like they're precious. When he speaks, his voice is barely audible. Car crash. I was 7. Mom was driving. A drunk driver hit us head-on. She died instantly. I was trapped in the car for 2 hours before they could cut me out. My right arm was crushed. They couldn't save it. The ballroom is silent again, but it's a different kind of silence now. Not judgment, something closer to empathy. Several women in the crowd wipe their eyes. I'm sorry, Sterling says quietly. That's a terrible thing for a child to go through. The worst part wasn't losing my arm, Ethan continues, still not looking up. It was losing her. She was a music teacher. Piano was her life. She was teaching me to play. After the accident, after I woke up in the hospital and realized she was gone, and my arm was gone, I thought I'd lost everything that connected me to her. He finally looks up, and his eyes are bright with unshed tears. But then I heard a nurse playing a video on her phone. Piano music. And I thought maybe I haven't lost everything. Maybe I can still play. Maybe I can still have this piece of her. Sarah Williams is crying openly now. So are several other people. Even Sterling looks affected, clearing his throat. So I taught myself. Ethan continues. First with my left hand doing the melody. Then I figured out I could use different fingers for different parts. I watched videos of people playing jazz, classical, everything. I practiced every single day, in the hospital, at the shelter we stayed in after we lost our apartment, in every place we've lived since. Shelter Sterling asks gently. Ethan nods. After Mom died, Dad struggled. Medical bills from my injuries, funeral costs. He lost our house. We lived in his car for a while, then shelters, then finally got an apartment when he got the janitor job here 3 years ago. He works 3 jobs to keep us afloat. This one early morning delivery truck and weekend maintenance at a church. The crowd is completely absorbed now. This isn't just a story about a kid who can play piano with one hand. This is a story about survival, about determination, about refusing to let circumstances destroy your dreams. Dad doesn't know I can play this well, Ethan admits. We can't afford a real piano. I have a cheap keyboard with broken keys that I bought at a thrift store for $15. But whenever Dad works nights here, I sneak to the music rooms during my lunch break at school and practice on the real pianos there. I've been dreaming about playing on a piano like this. He gestures to the grand piano my whole life. Sterling is quiet for a long moment. Then he asks, "Why tonight? Why take the risk of sneaking in here?" Ethan's voice drops to a whisper. Because I turn 18 next month. I applied to 13 music schools. 13. Full scholarship applications to all of them. I sent videos of me playing on my broken keyboard. He pauses, swallowing hard. I got 13 rejection letters. Every single one said the same thing, that my technical skill was impressive, but that my disability would prevent me from pursuing a serious career in music, that I should consider other paths, that piano performance requires 2 hands. The bitterness in his voice is sharp enough to cut. Several people in the crowd shake their heads in disgust at those schools. So I thought maybe they're right. Maybe I'm fooling myself. Maybe I should give up and focus on getting a regular job, help Dad with the bills. But then tonight, when I heard the band playing, I thought, what if I just tried one more time? What if I could play on a real grand piano just once in front of people who actually understand music? Maybe they could tell me the truth. Am I good enough, or am I wasting my time? He looks directly at Sterling, then at the band leader, then at the crowd. So please tell me the truth. Was that good enough, or should I give up? The question hangs in the air like a challenge, like a prayer. The band leader opens his mouth, then closes it. Looks at Sterling. Sterling looks at the crowd. You can feel the weight of the moment. This kid's entire future might depend on what happens in the next few seconds. Then a voice from the back of the room calls out, "Let him play more. We need to hear more." "Yes," another voice agrees. "A full piece. Give him a real chance." The calls spread through the crowd. Even some of the skeptics are nodding now. Sterling looks around the room, gauging the mood. Then he looks at his band leader. "Marcus, what do you think?" Marcus, the band leader, studies Ethan for a long moment. His expression is still complicated, but something has shifted. Finally, he speaks. "I think we should let him play one full piece. A real test. Something challenging. If he can handle it, then we'll know for sure." "What piece?" Sterling asks. Marcus thinks. Then a slight smile crosses his face. "It's not entirely kind. Chopin's Fantaisie Impromptu." Fourth movement, one of the most technically demanding piano pieces ever written, usually requires incredible dexterity in both hands. Several people in the crowd gasp. Even you know that piece. It's notoriously difficult, fast, complex. Some pianists with two fully functional hands struggle with it. "That's not fair," Sarah Williams protests. "That piece is nearly impossible with one hand exactly," Marcus says. But his tone isn't cruel. If he can play even a simplified version of it competently, that will prove more than anything else could. That will show real mastery. He turns to Ethan. "Do you know the piece?" Ethan nods slowly. "I've practiced it. I had to modify some parts, change the fingering. I've never played it all the way through on a real piano before." "Will you try?" For the first time since sitting down, Ethan smiles. It's a small smile, nervous and uncertain, but real. "Yes, sir. I'll try." Marcus nods and steps back. Sterling returns to his seat in the front row. The crowd settles in. You hear people whispering to each other, explaining what's about to happen to those who don't know classical music. The tension in the room is electric. Ethan adjusts his position on the bench again, cracks the knuckles of his left hand, takes 3 deep breaths, closes his eyes, and then he begins to play. But before we hear what happened in that ballroom, you need to understand how Ethan Brooks arrived at this moment. You need to know the full story. So let's go back. Back 10 years. Back to the day that changed everything. It's a sunny Saturday afternoon in Portland, Oregon. 7-year-old Ethan is in the back seat of his mother's Honda Civic, swinging his legs and humming along to the radio. They're coming home from his piano lesson, his 3rd lesson ever. He's so excited because today Mrs. Chen, his teacher, said he has natural talent, said he might be really good someday if he keeps practicing. His mother, Rebecca Brooks, glances at him in the rearview mirror and smiles. She's only 32, with the same dark eyes and messy hair as her son. She teaches music at the local middle school and gives piano lessons on the side to make extra money. "What did you think of the lesson, sweetie?" she asks. "It was so cool, Mom, Mrs. Chen taught me how to play with both hands at the same time." "Look." He holds up both hands and wiggles his fingers, mimicking playing piano in the air. Rebecca laughs. "That's called coordination. It takes practice, but you'll get it. You've got good hands, Ethan. Piano hands. Like yours, even better. You're going to be amazing someday. I can feel it." They're at a red light now, waiting to turn left. Ethan is babbling about how he wants to learn to play the Toy Story theme song so he can show Dad when he gets home from his shift at the factory. Rebecca is nodding, half listening, checking her mirrors before the light changes. The light turns green. She starts to turn. And that's when Ethan sees it. A pickup truck coming from the right way too fast, not slowing down. Time seems to stretch. He sees his mother's eyes widen as she realizes. Sees her try to accelerate, try to get through the intersection faster. But it's too late. The truck slams into the passenger side of the car at 50 miles per hour. The sound is incredible. Metal crunching, glass exploding, Ethan's scream, his mother's scream, the world spinning, tumbling, everything happening at once and in slow motion simultaneously. When the car finally stops rolling, it's upside down. Ethan is hanging from his seatbelt, his right arm trapped between the crushed door and the car seat. There's blood. So much blood. He's screaming for his mom, but she's not answering. Silence from the front seat. He can see her head hanging down, her dark hair covering her face. She's not moving. Not moving at all. Mommy. His right arm is on fire. The pain is beyond anything he's ever felt. He tries to pull it free, but he can't move it. Can't feel his fingers. There's something sharp cutting into his shoulder. Blood running down from somewhere. People are shouting outside the car. Someone's face appears at the broken window. A man with a beard, with a, "Hang on, kid. Hang on. We're getting help. My mom." Ethan sobs. "Help my mom." The man looks toward the front seat. His face goes pale. He turns away quickly. That's when Ethan knows. Even at 7 years old, he understands what that look means. His mother is gone. The next 2 hours are a nightmare. Firefighters arrive. They have to cut the car apart to get to him. Every movement sends agony through his trapped arm. He's screaming, crying, calling for his mom over and over. The firefighters are gentle, but urgent. They give him something for the pain through an IV, but it doesn't help much. "Stay with us, buddy," a female firefighter keeps saying. "Stay awake. Talk to me." "What's your name, Ethan?" he whimpers. "That's a great name. I'm Jennifer. Can you tell me about school, Ethan?" "What grade are you in second? My mom teaches music. She's a teacher. Is she okay? Please tell me she's okay." Jennifer's face is kind, but sad. "Let's focus on you right now." "Okay. You're doing so great. So brave." When they finally free him and pull him from the wreckage, he sees his arm, or what's left of it. It's mangled beyond recognition, barely attached below the elbow. He doesn't remember much after that. Just sirens and bright lights and people talking in urgent voices, and his father's face suddenly there, white and terrified, grabbing his left hand. "Dad." Ethan gasps. "Dad, Moms." "I know," his father chokes out. "I know, son. But you're okay. You're going to be okay." But Ethan isn't okay. Not for a long time. The surgeons try to save his arm, but the damage is too severe. Crushed bones, severed nerves, massive tissue damage. After 3 surgeries and 2 weeks of agony, they make the call. The arm has to come off. If they don't amputate, infection will kill him. James Brooks signs the papers with a shaking hand. Ethan is too young to understand what's happening. They tell him they need to do 1 more surgery to help him heal. He nods, trusting them, not knowing that when he wakes up, part of him will be gone forever. When he finally comes out of the anesthesia and realizes what happened, he screams, screams and screams until his voice gives out. His father holds him crying too, both of them drowning in grief and loss. Rebecca Brooks' funeral happens while Ethan is still in the hospital. He can't go, can't say goodbye. He's too weak, too broken. His father goes alone, comes back with red eyes, and brings Ethan a program from the service. There's a picture of his mother at her piano, smiling. Ethan stares at that picture for hours. At the piano. At his mother's hands on the keys. "I'll never play piano again," he whispers to his father that night. How can I play with one hand? James doesn't have an answer. He just holds his son and cries. The bills start coming immediately. Hospital bills, surgery bills, rehabilitation bills, funeral costs. The drunk driver who hit them has no insurance and no assets. James's insurance covers some of it, but not nearly enough. He takes on a second job, then a third, stops sleeping more than 4 hours a night. But it's not enough. 6 months after the accident, they lose their house. The bank forecloses. They pack everything into James's truck and move into a motel. Then into the truck itself, when the motel becomes too expensive. Father and son sleeping in a vehicle, showering at truck stops, eating fast food when they can afford it. James never complains, never shows his son how desperate things really are. He smiles and tells Ethan everything will be okay, even when he's working 18-hour days and looking 10 years older than he did before the accident. Ethan withdraws, stops talking much, refuses to go back to school for months. When he finally does return, the other kids stare at his missing arm. Some ask questions. Some make jokes. Some pretend not to notice and just avoid him entirely. He eats lunch alone, reading library books, trying to disappear. One day, about 8 months after the accident, Ethan is in the library during lunch when he hears music coming from the room next door. Piano music. Someone practicing. He recognizes the piece. Mozart's Sonata No. 16. His mother used to play it. Without thinking, he gets up and walks to the door, peers through the window. There's a girl at the piano, maybe a year older than him, playing with focused intensity. Her hands move across the keys with practiced ease. Both hands, both arms. Ethan feels something crack open inside his chest. Jealousy, longing, grief. He turns to leave, tears burning his eyes. But then he hears it. A voice in his memory. His mother's voice from one of their last lessons together. Music doesn't come from your hands, Ethan. It comes from your heart. Your hands are just the tools, but the music itself, that's inside you. Nobody can take that away. He stops, turns back, watches the girl play, and thinks, what if Mom was right? What if the music is still inside me? What if I could find a way that night at the shelter where he and his father are staying? Ethan uses the communal computer to search YouTube. One-handed piano playing. He finds videos of people playing piano with only their left hand. Some are disabled, like him. Some are playing pieces specifically written for one hand. He watches video after video, barely blinking, studies their techniques, how they position their hand, how they use different fingers for different parts, how they make one hand sound like two. What you're watching, his father asks, settling into the chair next to him. Piano videos, Ethan says quietly. James's expression becomes complicated. Son, you know we can't afford lessons anymore. And a piano. I'm sorry. I can't. I know, Dad. I'm just watching, just remembering. But it's more than that. It's hope, fragile and small, beginning to take root. 2 weeks later, James comes back from his shift at the warehouse with something in his hands. A box. He sets it on the small table in their shelter room. Happy birthday, Ethan. Ethan had forgotten it was his birthday. 8 years old today. He opens the box and finds a small electronic keyboard. Cheap. Plastic. Only 3 octaves. Several keys stick, but it works. Dad, we can't afford this, Ethan whispers. James kneels down so they're eye level. I sold some things. Your mom's jewelry. I'm sorry. I know you might have wanted to keep it, but I thought maybe this is what she would have wanted instead. Ethan throws his arm around his father's neck and hugs him harder than he's ever hugged anyone. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. That night, Ethan places the keyboard on his lap and puts his left hand on the keys. Just his left hand. Takes a deep breath and presses down on middle C. The sound is tinny electronic, nothing like his mother's beautiful grand piano. But it's a piano sound. It's music. He starts with the basics, relearning scales with just his left hand. It's frustrating at first. He keeps wanting to use his right hand, keeps forgetting it's not there. Sometimes he cries. Sometimes he throws the keyboard across the room in anger. But he always picks it back up. James watches his son practice every night and sees something he hasn't seen in months. Purpose. Life. Rebecca would be proud. Over the next months and years, Ethan devours every YouTube video, every online tutorial he can find. He learns techniques from one-handed pianists. He studies jazz pianists who play complex chords. He watches classical masters and tries to figure out how to adapt their pieces for one hand. He practices in the morning before school, during lunch, after homework, late into the night with headphones so he won't wake anyone at whatever shelter or cheap apartment they're staying in. His fingers develop calluses. His wrist grows strong. His technique improves. By the time he's 10, he can play pieces that sound like they're being played by two hands. He's developed his own style, his own adaptations. He plays classical jazz pop, whatever he can find. The broken keyboard becomes an extension of his body. When they finally move into a real apartment after James gets the janitor job at Riverside Hotel, Ethan cries. A real home. His own room. A door he can close. Space to practice without bothering anyone. He applies himself even harder. Starts composing his own pieces, things that work for one hand. Dreams of becoming a professional pianist. James encourages him, even though they both know it's a long shot. At 13, Ethan tries to join the school band. The music teacher looks at him skeptically. "I don't think we have a place for you," she says, not unkindly. "All our piano pieces require two hands. I can adapt them," Ethan offers. "I can show you." She lets him try more out of pity than expectation. He sits at the school's upright piano and plays a one-handed arrangement of the school fight song. When he finishes, the teacher's mouth is hanging open. "That was unexpected," she admits. "But I still don't think it will work for performances." "I'm sorry. Rejection. He'll get used to it." At 15, he applies for a summer music program, sends in a video of himself playing, gets a form letter back. "Unfortunately, we're unable to accommodate students with disabilities at this time." More rejection. At 16, he tries to get into the Regional Youth Symphony, makes it to the audition round. The judges watch him play with obvious surprise, whispering to each other. One says, "That's impressive, young man. Very impressive. But we need to consider the visual aspect of our performances." The visual aspect, translation, "You look different, and that's a problem." Rejection after rejection after rejection. Each one chips away at his confidence. By the time he's 17 and applying to colleges, he's almost numb to it. But he still tries, still sends applications, still hopes. When the 13th and final rejection letter arrives, something breaks inside him. He sits on his bed, holding the letter, reading the same polite dismissal he's read 12 times before. "Your disability would prevent you from pursuing a serious career in music performance." He crumples the letter, throws it at the wall, picks up his cheap keyboard, the same one his father bought him 9 years ago, now held together with duct tape. And he thinks about throwing it too, about giving up, about accepting that some dreams are impossible. But he doesn't. He sets it down carefully, sits at his small desk, and starts planning. Because if the schools won't give him a chance, if the programs won't accept him, then he'll have to make his own opportunity. He'll have to prove them all wrong, which is how 2 weeks later, he finds himself sneaking into the Sterling Foundation charity gala. How he finds himself standing on a stage in front of hundreds of wealthy strangers. How he finds himself at the most important moment of his life. And now, we return to that moment. To Ethan sitting at that grand piano, to his left hand hovering over the keys, to hundreds of eyes watching, to everything he's worked for, everything he's dreamed of hanging in the balance. Let's hear what happens next. But there's more to this story, because Ethan Brooks didn't get to this moment alone. Behind every struggling artist is someone who believed in them, someone who sacrificed everything to give them a chance. For Ethan, that person is his father, James Brooks. Let's talk about James. Because while Ethan was fighting his own battle with disability and rejection, his father was fighting a different kind of war. A war against poverty, against circumstances, against a system that seems designed to keep struggling people down. James Brooks was a factory worker before the accident. Union job, good benefits, decent pay. Not rich, but comfortable. He and Rebecca were saving for a bigger house, planning for Ethan's college fund. Living the American dream, modest version. Then in one afternoon, everything collapsed. His wife dead, his son maimed. Medical bills in the hundreds of thousands, and the factory, sympathetic as they tried to be, could only give him 2 weeks of bereavement leave before they needed him back on the line. James couldn't do it, couldn't focus. Kept seeing the accident in his head, kept thinking about his son lying broken in a hospital bed. His performance slipped. Made mistakes, dangerous mistakes in a factory setting. After 3 months, they let him go. Not fired exactly, voluntary separation they called it. No benefits, no severance, just a handshake and wishes for better luck. That's when the real descent began. James took any job he could find. Warehouse work, delivery driving, construction. Nothing stable, nothing with benefits. And all the while the bills kept coming. Hospital wanted their money. Funeral home wanted their money. Credit cards maxed out just trying to keep food on the table. The house went first. Then the savings. Then everything of value they owned except the absolute essentials. He sold Rebecca's piano, the beautiful upright she'd had since childhood. Sold it for a fraction of its worth because he needed cash immediately. Used that money to buy Ethan's first cheap keyboard and pay for another month of their storage unit. When they were living in his truck, James would drop Ethan at school, work his day labor jobs, pick Ethan up, then drive to the Walmart parking lot where they'd sleep. He'd wake up at 5 in the morning, drive them to a truck stop to shower and brush teeth, then do it all again. He never complained to Ethan, never showed weakness. But sometimes after Ethan fell asleep in the passenger seat, James would sit there in the dark and cry silently. Not for himself, for his son, for the childhood Ethan was missing, for the opportunities being stolen by circumstance. The shelters were better than the truck, at least. Roof over their heads, hot meals. But they came with their own challenges. Lack of privacy. Strict rules. The constant knowledge that this was temporary, that they could be kicked out for any violation. James worked 3 jobs during the shelter period. Morning shift delivering newspapers 3 to 11 in the morning. Afternoon shift at a restaurant washing dishes noon to 8 at night. Yes, the overlap meant he barely slept. Weekend shift doing maintenance at a church Saturday and Sunday mornings. He'd catch sleep in his truck between shifts. 30 minutes here, an hour there. Lived on coffee and determination. His body started breaking down. Back problems from the physical labor. Stress headaches that never went away. But he kept going. Because every night, he'd come back to the shelter and see Ethan practicing on that broken keyboard with such fierce concentration. See his son refusing to give up on his dreams even when everything else had been taken from him. and James knew he couldn't give up either. When the janitorial position opened at Riverside Hotel, it felt like a miracle. Night shift, which was perfect because it paid more. Steady hours. And most important benefits. Health insurance. After 3 years of paying out of pocket for Ethan's medical needs, actual health insurance felt like winning the lottery. James aced the interview. He'd do anything, work any hours, whatever they needed. The manager, a kind woman named Patricia, saw something in him. Hired him on the spot. "You start Monday. Don't let me down." He didn't. James Brooks became the best janitor Riverside Hotel ever had. Always on time, never complained, took on extra shifts when asked, volunteered for the worst jobs, the ones nobody else wanted, cleaned up things that would make most people quit. And slowly, painfully, they climbed back toward stability. After 6 months, they had enough saved for a security deposit. Moved into a small one-bedroom apartment in a rough neighborhood. Ethan took the bedroom. James slept on the couch. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. James kept his 3 jobs at first, squirreling away every penny he could. But Ethan was getting older, needed supervision less, so he scaled back to 2 jobs, the hotel and weekend maintenance at the church. Used the extra time to actually sleep, to be present for his son. He'd come home at 7 in the morning, wake Ethan for school, make breakfast. Eggs and toast, same thing every day because it was cheap. Drive Ethan to school in his ancient truck that barely ran. Go home and sleep until 2. Get up, do household chores, maybe pick up an extra cleaning job for cash. Pick Ethan up from school, help with homework, even though he barely graduated high school himself. Then around 9 at night, he'd put on his janitor uniform, grab his lunch pail, and head to the hotel for his midnight shift. Work until 7 in the morning. Do it all again. Every single day. No breaks, no vacations, no sick days. Because one missed shift could mean eviction. Could mean going back to shelters. Could mean losing what little stability they'd fought so hard to achieve. But here's what made it bearable. What kept James going through the exhaustion and pain and endless grind. Every night around 11:30, just before James had to leave for work, Ethan would play something for him on his keyboard. Just one piece. Sometimes something Ethan had learned that day. Sometimes something old that they both loved. Sometimes one of Ethan's own compositions. And James would sit on their worn-out couch and listen to his one-armed son create beauty out of tragedy. Would watch those calloused fingers dance across broken plastic keys and hear echoes of Rebecca. Would remember that love and hope and dreams still existed even in the darkest times. "You're going to be famous someday," James would tell his son after each performance. "Dad, be realistic," Ethan would reply, but he'd be smiling. "I am being realistic. You're brilliant, Ethan. The world just doesn't know it yet." When the college rejection letters started coming, James watched his son's spirit slowly crumble. Each rejection hit harder than the last. Ethan tried to hide it, tried to be strong, but James knew. Could see it in the way Ethan's shoulders slumped when he checked the mail, in the way his practice sessions became more aggressive, frustrated. After the 13th rejection, James found his son sitting on his bed, staring at the wall. "Hey, James," said softly, sitting beside him. "Talk to me." "What's the point?" "Dad." Ethan's voice was hollow. 13 schools, 13 rejections. They're all telling me the same thing. I'm not good enough. My disability makes me unemployable as a musician. Maybe they're right. Maybe I should just give up. James was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his wallet and pulled out a worn photograph. Rebecca at her piano, smiling at the camera. He handed it to Ethan. "You know what your mother used to say? She said the world is full of people who will tell you what you can't do. Their job is to maintain the status quo, to keep things predictable and safe. But the people who change the world, who create beauty and meaning, those are the people who refuse to listen." Mom had two hands, Ethan said bitterly. Mom had something more important than hands. She had courage. And so do you. You've already proven that you can play at a level most people with two hands never reach. The only question is whether you're going to let some scared admissions officers determine your worth. So what am I supposed to do? I can't afford to go to music school without a scholarship. I can't get a scholarship without being admitted. I'm stuck. James stood up. Then we get creative. We find another way. Maybe you don't need music school. Maybe you need exposure. Maybe you need people to see what you can do, not just read about it on an application. How do I do that? I don't know yet. But we'll figure it out. We always do. That conversation happened 3 weeks before the gala. James started paying closer attention to events at the hotel, especially events with music, with important people, with opportunities. When he saw the Sterling Foundation Gala on the schedule, he did some research. Richard Sterling, self-made billionaire. Started with nothing, built a real estate empire. Known for his philanthropy, especially toward education and the arts. The gala would have live music, a grand piano. James didn't tell Ethan his plan, didn't want to get his hopes up in case it didn't work. But on the night of the gala, he made sure to bring Ethan to work with him. Made up an excuse about needing help with some heavy equipment. And then, an hour into the event, James happened to mention that there was live music playing, that the ballroom had an incredible grand piano, the nicest piano in the city. He watched Ethan's face light up, watched the longing appear in his son's eyes. "Can I just see it?" Ethan asked. "Just for a minute." "Better not," James said, but not too firmly. Could get in trouble. He saw the moment Ethan made the decision, saw his son's jaw set with determination. And when Ethan slipped away from the service area, James pretended not to notice. He was terrified, of course. Terrified that Ethan would get caught, get arrested for trespassing, get his father fired. But he was more terrified of watching his son give up on his dreams. Sometimes James figured you have to take a risk. So when security called him about his son being on stage, James wasn't surprised. He rushed to the ballroom, pushed through the crowd, ready to apologize, ready to beg them not to press charges. But then he saw his son at that piano. Saw Richard Sterling giving him a chance. Saw Ethan about to do what he'd been preparing for his entire life. And James Brooks, standing at the back of the ballroom in his janitor uniform with cleaning supplies still clipped to his belt, started to cry. Because he knew in that moment that every sacrifice had been worth it. Every sleepless night, every aching muscle, every missed meal, every indignity and hardship and moment of despair. It was all worth it for this, for watching his son get the chance he deserved. Now, let's return to that ballroom. To Ethan, sitting at the piano, about to play Chopin's Fantaisie Impromptu. To James, watching from the back, praying. To everyone waiting to see if this impossible kid can pull off the impossible. Ethan's left hand hovers over the keys of the grand piano. The ballroom is silent. Hundreds of people watching, waiting. The air feels thick with anticipation and doubt in equal measure. But before Ethan can begin, that same skeptical band leader, Marcus, steps forward again. "Wait," Marcus says, holding up his hand. "Mr. Sterling, I need to say something before we proceed." The crowd murmurs. Sterling looks annoyed. Marcus, we've already agreed to let him play. I understand that, sir. But I want to be on the record. This piece, the Fantaisie Impromptu, is extraordinarily difficult. It requires rapid hand-crossing complex polyrhythms and sustained technical precision. Vladimir Horowitz called it one of the most challenging pieces in the Romantic repertoire. Pianists with 2 fully functional hands struggle with it. I've been playing piano for 35 years and I still find it daunting. He turns to Ethan. I'm not trying to discourage you, son. I'm trying to manage expectations, both yours and everyone else's. If you can't pull this off, it won't mean you're not talented. It will simply mean you attempted something nearly impossible. Ethan meets his eyes. I understand, sir. Do you? Because I'm concerned that if you fail at this, you'll be humiliated in front of all these people. That the video everyone is inevitably recording on their phones will go viral for the wrong reasons. That you'll become a meme, a joke. Maybe it would be better to play something simpler, something you know you can handle. It's not said cruelly. Marcus genuinely seems concerned, but his words have an effect. You can see doubt creeping into Ethan's expression. His hand trembles slightly over the keys. Sarah Williams, the veteran with the prosthetic leg, stands up again. Or maybe he'll succeed and inspire thousands of people who think their disabilities define their limitations. Maybe he'll show the world what's possible when you refuse to accept other people's expectations. A man in an expensive suit near the front calls out. Easy for you to say. You're not the one about to embarrass yourself on camera. Embarrass himself. Sarah's voice rises. This young man has more courage in his missing arm than you have in your entire body. He's not afraid of failure. Why are you? I'm being practical, the man argues. Sometimes kindness means preventing someone from making a fool of themselves. And sometimes kindness means believing in someone when they don't believe in themselves. Sarah shoots back. The room is dividing. Arguments breaking out at different tables. Some people defending Ethan's right to try. Others insisting that letting him attempt something so difficult is cruel, setting him up for public failure. Officer Marcus Johnson, the cop who spoke earlier, stands up. Can I say something? The room quiets slightly. There's authority in his voice that demands attention. My daughter Emily was born deaf, he begins. Completely deaf in both ears. When she was 5, she told us she wanted to be a dancer. A dancer. Do you know how many people told us that was impossible? That dance requires musicality, requires feeling the rhythm, requires hearing the music. He pauses, looking around the room. We could have protected her, could have steered her towards something more realistic. But we let her try. And you know what? She's now 16 and dancing with the Pacific Northwest Ballet's junior company. She feels the music through vibrations in the floor, through watching other dancers, through her own internal sense of rhythm that none of us fully understand. She's extraordinary, not despite her disability, but because she refused to let it stop her. He points to Ethan. This young man deserves the same chance Emily got, the chance to attempt the impossible. If he fails, he fails. But he'll fail trying, which is more than most people can say. An elderly woman in diamonds stands up. Her voice is aristocratic, carrying the weight of old money. Young man, what is your name again? Ethan Brooks, ma'am. Ethan Brooks. I'm Catherine Remington. My late husband founded the Remington School of Music. I've been involved with musical education for 40 years. I've heard thousands of pianists, auditioned hundreds for scholarships. And I want to tell you something. She pauses for effect. Everyone is listening now. Technical perfection is overrated. Yes, it's important. But what makes a truly great musician isn't flawless execution. It's heart. It's passion. It's the ability to make an audience feel something. I heard you play for 45 seconds earlier, and in those 45 seconds you made me feel more than I've felt at any performance in the last 5 years. Her voice becomes fierce. So I don't care if you make mistakes. I don't care if you miss notes or if your tempo wavers. I care whether you play with soul, whether you mean it. Can you do that? Ethan's voice is shaky but determined. Yes, ma'am. I can do that. Catherine nods and sits down. Then play boy. And ignore all these people trying to protect you from yourself. But the debate isn't over. A younger man, maybe in his 30s, designer suit, tech, startup, money, written all over him, speaks up. Look, I'm all for inspiration and feel-good stories. But let's be honest here. This kid is 17. No formal training. Missing an arm. Even if he's good, what's the end game? He's not going to get into Juilliard. He's not going to tour with symphonies. At best, he'll play at hotel lobbies and weddings. Is it really kind to encourage a dream that has no realistic future? Several people nod. Others look uncomfortable, but don't argue. It's the quiet cruelty of pragmatism. The death of dreams by logistics. James Brooks can't stay quiet anymore. He pushes through the crowd toward the stage. People turn to look at him, at his janitor uniform, at his weathered face and calloused hands. "That's my son James," says his voice breaking. "That's my boy up there." The room goes silent. Sterling stands up. "Mr. Brooks, I presume?" "Yes, sir. And I need to say something." James turns to face the crowd. "You all see a disabled kid. A one-armed teenager with no money and no connections trying to do something impossible. But I see something different." His voice strengthens. "I see a boy who lost his mother and his arm in the same accident when he was 7 years old, who had every reason to give up, to be angry, to let tragedy define him. But instead, he taught himself to play piano using YouTube videos and a broken keyboard that I bought at a thrift store. He practiced every single day for 10 years while we lived in my truck in shelters in apartments where the heat didn't work." James is crying now, but he doesn't stop. He got rejected by 13 music schools. 13. Every single one told him he wasn't good enough, that his disability made him unsuitable for a career in music. And after the last rejection, I found him sitting on his bed, broken. And I thought, what can I do? How can I show him that he's worth believing in? He looks at Ethan. So I brought him here tonight. I knew it was risky, knew we could both lose everything. But I thought maybe if he could just play on a real grand piano just once in front of people who understand music, maybe someone would see what I see. Would see that he's not just good, he's extraordinary. James turns back to the crowd. "So you can debate whether it's kind or cruel to let him try. You can calculate the odds of his success. You can protect him from potential embarrassment. But I'm his father and I'm telling you, let him play. Let him have this moment. Because win or lose, succeed or fail, he deserves to try." The silence that follows is profound. Several people are wiping their eyes. Even the skeptical tech bro looks uncomfortable. Sterling walks over to James and shakes his hand. "Mr. Brooks, your son is lucky to have you. And I promise you, whatever happens here tonight, neither of you will lose anything." He turns to the crowd. "We're not going to debate this anymore. Ethan is going to play. You can watch or you can leave. But we're done questioning whether he deserves this chance." Clear. No one argues. No one leaves. They settle into their seats and turn their attention to the stage. Sterling returns to his seat in the front row. Marcus, the band leader, steps back, though he's still watching intently. Sarah Williams gives Ethan a thumbs up. Officer Johnson nods encouragingly. Catherine Remington sits with her hands folded, waiting. James stays standing at the back of the room, his heart pounding so hard he thinks everyone can hear it. Ethan looks out at all these faces, all these people who have been arguing about him, dissecting his worth, calculating his chances. He sees his father's tear-stained face, sees Sarah's prosthetic leg and Officer Johnson's supportive expression, sees Catherine Remington's expectant gaze, and even Marcus's cautious curiosity. And he makes a decision. He's not playing for them. Not really. He's playing for his mother, for his father, for 7-year-old Ethan, who woke up in a hospital bed and thought his life was over, for every kid with a disability who's been told they can't, for everyone who's been rejected and dismissed and underestimated. He's playing to prove that they're all wrong. Ethan positions his left hand over the keys, takes a deep breath so deep his chest expands visibly, exhales slowly, closes his eyes, and thinks, "Mom, if you're listening, help me make this beautiful." Then he begins to play. The first note rings out in the silent ballroom, a single C sharp in the upper register. Clear, pure, hanging in the air like a question. Then nothing. Just that one note, sustaining fading slowly. Ethan's hand remains frozen over the keys. 5 seconds pass. 10. The crowd shifts nervously. Is he choking? Having second thoughts. But Ethan's eyes are still closed. He's not frozen with fear. He's remembering, preparing, centering himself. In his mind, he hears his mother's voice from their last lesson together just hours before the accident. They were working on a difficult piece, and young Ethan kept messing up the timing. "You're thinking too much," Rebecca had said. "Music isn't a math problem you solve with your brain. It's a feeling you express with your soul. Stop trying to control every note. Let the music flow through you." "But what if I make mistakes?" 7-year-old Ethan had asked. "Then you make mistakes. But you make them confidently. You make them part of the music. The difference between a wrong note and a jazz improvisation is just attitude." She'd laughed and ruffled his hair. "The greatest musicians aren't the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones who make mistakes sound intentional. They're the ones who connect with their audience so deeply that technical perfection becomes irrelevant." "I don't understand," young Ethan had said. "You will someday. When you find the piece that speaks to your soul, you'll understand. Music isn't about the notes on the page. It's about what you pour into them." Standing in the ballroom, now 17-year-old Ethan finally understands what she meant. He opens his eyes, looks down at his left hand calloused and strong from 10 years of compensating for what's missing. Looks at his right side, at the empty sleeve, at the absence that has defined so much of his life. And for the first time ever, he doesn't see his missing arm as a limitation. He sees it as part of his story, part of what makes his music unique, part of what he has to say. The people in this room don't know it yet, but they're not about to hear Chopin's Fantasy Impromptu played by a disabled kid trying to prove himself. They're about to hear Ethan Brooks's story told through modified Chopin. They're about to hear what 10 years of pain and practice and refusal to quit sounds like when transformed into music. Ethan's left hand moves to the starting position. The opening of the Fantasy Impromptu requires rapid triplet figures in the right hand against duplets in the left. Impossible for one hand, right? That's what everyone assumes. But Ethan has spent 2 years figuring out a modification. He's going to play the melody with his thumb and index finger while using his ring finger and pinky for the bass rhythm. The middle finger will jump between both parts, filling in notes where needed. It requires independence of digits that most pianists never develop. It requires his hand to move so fast it will look like a blur. He's practiced this specific piece 3,000 times on his broken keyboard. 3,000 times. He knows every note, every transition, every moment where he has to make a split-second choice about which notes to keep and which to sacrifice. His father, James, watching from the back, recognizes his son's expression. It's the same look Ethan gets when he's about to attempt something he's not completely sure he can do. That mixture of terror and excitement. James's hands are clenched so tight his knuckles are white. Sarah Williams leans forward in her seat. She knows what courage looks like. She's worn that same expression before jumping out of helicopters in Afghanistan, before learning to walk again on her prosthetic leg, before every moment in her life when she chose to attempt the difficult thing rather than accept the easy limitation. Marcus, the band leader, has his arms crossed, but his expression has shifted from skepticism to genuine curiosity. He's watching Ethan's hand position with professional interest. As a musician himself, he can see the preparation can recognize the technique being employed even before the music begins. Sterling is completely still in his front row seat, phone out and already recording. He's built an empire by recognizing potential that others miss. Right now, his instincts are telling him he's about to witness something special. Catherine Remington's eyes are closed, but she's not asleep or uninterested. She's listening with the intense focus of someone who has spent a lifetime training their ear. Waiting for the first phrase, the first indication of whether this young man has what she thinks he has. The room is holding its collective breath. Even the skeptics, the people who think this is going to be a disaster, can't look away. There's something magnetic about watching someone attempt the impossible, whether they succeed or fail. Ethan rolls his shoulders once, flexes his fingers. His left hand floats above the keys like a bird about to take flight. He thinks about his mother one more time. Imagines she's sitting in the audience, smiling at him the way she used to. Imagines her nodding, giving him permission to fly. Then he releases everything. All the doubt, all the fear, all the weight of rejection and hardship and lost possibilities. Lets it all go, because none of that matters now. There's only the piano, his hand, and the music waiting to be born. Ethan's fingers descend to the keys, and the Fantaisie impromptu begins. The opening cascade of notes explodes from the piano like water breaking through a dam, rapid, flowing, impossibly fast for one hand. Ethan's fingers are moving so quickly they blur together. His thumb carries the melody in the upper register while his pinky and ring finger hammer out the driving rhythm in the bass. His middle finger dances between both parts, filling in harmonies, creating the illusion of two hands playing. The technical modification he's developed is extraordinary. Instead of playing the piece exactly as written, which requires two hands crossing over each other, he's rearranged it for one hand by alternating between high and low notes so rapidly that your brain interprets it as simultaneous playing. It's the musical equivalent of a flip book animation, where individual still images move fast enough to create the illusion of motion. For the first 30 seconds, the audience is simply in shock. They're trying to process what they're seeing and hearing. How is this possible? How can one hand produce this much sound, this much complexity? Marcus, the band leader's mouth falls open. He's been playing piano for 35 years, and he's never seen technique like this. The hand independence, the speed, the precision required. Most people couldn't do this with two hands, let alone one. The initial crashing intro begins to settle into the main theme. Ethan navigates the transition flawlessly. His body sways slightly with the music not dramatically, just enough to show he's feeling it. His face has transformed. Gone is the nervous teenager. This is an artist fully immersed in his craft. The melody emerges more clearly now. That famous haunting line that everyone recognizes, even if they don't know the piece's name. Ethan plays it with stunning expressiveness. Each note is weighted perfectly. The phrasing is musical, not just technically accurate. He's not just hitting the right notes. He's saying something with them. Sarah Williams is crying. She can't help it. There's something about watching someone transcend their limitations that breaks her heart open. She remembers her own first steps on her prosthetic leg, how impossible it seemed, how every person told her she'd never walk normally again. She proved them wrong, just like Ethan is proving everyone wrong right now. James Brooks has his hand over his mouth. Tears stream down his face. He's watching his son do what Rebecca always knew he could do. He's watching 10 years of sacrifice justify itself in real time. Every missed meal, every sleepless night, every moment of despair is worth it for this. To see his son shine. The first movement of the Fantaisie Impromptu builds in intensity. The rapid passages become even more rapid. Ethan's hand flies across the keyboard. He's hitting notes in the extreme upper and lower registers, requiring his hand to travel the entire length of the keyboard in fractions of a second. A woman in the third row gasps. How is he doing that? Her husband, a music professor at the local university, shakes his head in disbelief. I don't know. I've never seen anything like it. The hand positioning alone should be impossible. He's using his wrist for leverage, rotating his hand to reach different registers. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. The music swells. Ethan leans into the piano, putting his whole body behind certain powerful chords. His left shoulder dips and rises with the phrase, structure. His foot works the sustain pedal with perfect timing, letting some notes ring while cutting others short. Sterling is still recording, but his hands are shaking slightly. He's seen a lot in his 60 years. Built a fortune from nothing. Met presidents and celebrities. Witnessed incredible things. But this is something else. This is human potential, refusing to accept limitations. This is art born from adversity. The first movement reaches its conclusion. The cascading notes slow slightly, preparing for the transition to the second movement. This is one of the trickiest parts of the piece, where the mood shifts from aggressive to contemplative. It requires not just technical skill, but musical understanding. The ability to tell a story with dynamics and tempo changes. Ethan navigates it perfectly. The driving intensity slowly melts into something softer. His hand lightens its touch on the keys. The notes become gentler, more spaced out. The second movement of Fantaisie Impromptu is called the Largo section. It's slower, more singing. It's where the piece breathes. And this is where Ethan makes his first major deviation from the original. Because Chopin wrote this section as a duet between two hands, he needs to adapt it significantly. So he does something bold. He plays the melody straight, but he adds his own bass line. Not Chopin's bass line, his own. A jazz-influenced walking bass that complements the classical melody while adding modern flavor. Marcus, the band leader, sits up straighter. Oh, that's clever. That's really clever. Catherine Remington's eyes open. She smiles. The boy is improvising, taking Chopin's framework and making it his own. This is what separates good musicians from great ones. The confidence to adapt. The creativity to innovate while respecting the original. The Largo section is beautiful. Ethan plays it with such tenderness that several people in the audience close their eyes just listening. The notes hang in the air like morning mist. Delicate, emotional, honest. His father recognizes the melody. It's similar to one Rebecca used to play as a lullaby when Ethan was a baby. Ethan has woven his mother's memory into the performance. James's chest heaves with silent sobs. His boy hasn't forgotten her, has never forgotten her. The Largo builds slightly, adding more notes, more complexity while maintaining its gentle character. Ethan's face shows pure concentration. His eyes are focused on the keys, but he's not really seeing them. He's somewhere else. Somewhere inside the music. Inside the memory of his mother at her piano smiling, encouraging him to feel rather than think. As the Largo reaches its peak, Ethan does something unexpected. He stops playing completely, just for 2 beats. Silence. Then 3 soft notes. Silence again. Then 1 final chord held with the sustain pedal ringing out through the ballroom. The transition is complete. Now comes the 3rd movement, the return to speed. And this is where things are about to get really interesting. Because Ethan isn't just going to play the 3rd movement, he's going to invite the band to join him. The 3rd movement of Fantaisie Impromptu begins with Ethan's hand exploding back into rapid motion. The gentle contemplation of the Largo is gone, replaced by driving energy. His fingers hammer the keys with renewed force. The music demands attention, commands the space. But then, without warning, Ethan changes the key, shifts from the original D-flat major into something more contemporary. B-flat minor. A jazz key. And suddenly the classical piece is morphing into something else entirely. He's still using Chopin's melodic framework, but he's adding jazz harmonies. 7th chords. 9ths. Altered dominance. The classical piece is becoming a jazz standard in real time. It's audacious. It's unexpected. It's brilliant. And that's when he does something that makes everyone sit forward. He looks directly at Marcus, the band leader, standing near the stage, makes eye contact, nods toward the bass sitting in its stand, and keeps playing. But now he's clearly leaving space, playing rhythmic patterns that are begging for accompaniment. Marcus hesitates for only a second. Then a huge grin breaks across his face. He grabs his stand-up bass steps onto the stage and begins to play along. The moment the bass joins in, the music transforms. Marcus is a professional. He hears what Ethan is doing and matches it instantly. He adds a walking bass line that complements Ethan's left-hand rhythm perfectly. The 2 instruments lock together like they've been rehearsing for weeks. The crowd erupts in surprised applause, but neither musician stops. They're in it now, in the groove, communicating through music in the way only experienced players can. Ethan glances at the drummer next, raises his eyebrows. The drummer needs no further invitation. He moves to his kit and brings in hi-hat and brushes gentle at first, just adding texture. Then, as Ethan's playing intensifies, the drummer adds snare hits, kick drum pulses, building the rhythm section. Now it's a proper jazz trio. Piano, bass, drums, and they're playing something that hasn't existed before. A mashup of Chopin and hard bop. Classical training meets jazz improvisation. It shouldn't work, but it does. It really, really does. The saxophone player from the band stands up, horn in hand, looking at Ethan questioningly. Ethan grins and nods. The sax player takes a breath and adds a counter melody over the top. Long, sustained notes that soar above the piano's rapid figures. It's gorgeous. Sterling is on his feet now, still recording. Several other people have stood up too, unable to contain their excitement. This isn't just a performance anymore. This is a moment. Something special happening in real time. Sarah Williams is dancing in place, swaying to the rhythm. Her prosthetic leg is tapping out the beat. Officer Johnson has his arm around his wife, both of them grinning widely. Catherine Remington is nodding her head approvingly. This is jazz. This is living, breathing, improvising music making. James Brooks is laughing and crying at the same time. His son, his brilliant son, has turned what could have been a humiliating failure into a spontaneous jazz jam with professional musicians, has taken a moment of judgment and transformed it into collaboration. Marcus calls out to Ethan during a brief pause. Solo. Take a solo. Ethan's eyes go wide. Then he nods. The band falls back, leaving just bass and brushes keeping time. And Ethan launches into an improvised solo that makes jaws drop. His hand runs up and down the keyboard. He quotes Charlie Parker, references Bill Evans, throws in a little Oscar Peterson. Then he weaves back to Chopin, playing fragments of the original fantasy impromptu melody, but twisted through a jazz lens. He's showing off now, but in the best possible way. Not arrogant, joyful. This is what freedom sounds like. The solo builds and builds. His hand is moving so fast it's becoming difficult to track individual notes. He's playing in the extreme upper register, making the piano sing and shimmer. Then suddenly drops to the low-end, rumbling bass notes that you feel in your chest. Then back to the middle, rapid-fire eighth notes that tumble over each other like water over rocks. The band members are watching him with huge smiles. They're professionals, and they recognize another professional when they see one. Doesn't matter that he's 17. Doesn't matter that he has one arm. What matters is that he can play. Really play. Marcus takes a bass solo next, and Ethan comps behind him, playing rhythmic chords, supporting but not overwhelming. He knows how to be a team player, how to make space for other musicians. Another sign of real musicianship. The drummer takes a short solo. Then the sax player trades fours with Ethan, each of them playing 4-bar phrases back and forth. It's a conversation, a debate, a dance. The sax plays something smooth and melodic. Ethan responds with something angular and rhythmic. The sax goes high. Ethan goes low. They're pushing each other, inspiring each other. The audience is completely enthralled. People are clapping along with the beat. Someone whoops. Another person whistles. This has stopped being a formal charity gala. This is a jazz club now. This is alive. After several minutes of improvisation, Ethan signals the band. He's bringing it back to the original piece, the final movement of the Fantaisie Impromptu, the big finish. But he's not doing it alone. The band is coming with him. The music shifts back toward Chopin. The jazz harmonies gradually resolve into classical ones. The improvisation gives way to composed structure. But the band stays with him, supporting, enhancing. The bass player is adding depth. The drums are adding urgency. The sax is soaring above with long, melodic lines. And Ethan, at the center of it all, is playing with such confidence and joy that it's radiating off him in waves. This is what he was born to do. This is why he survived the accident. This is why he never gave up. For this moment. For this music. The final movement builds toward its climax. The cascading notes return faster than before, more intense. The entire band is playing now, all of them locked into Ethan's tempo, following his lead. A 17-year-old with one arm is leading a professional jazz band, and they're following happily because he knows exactly where he's going. The music reaches a fever pitch. Ethan's hand is flying across the keyboard. Sweat is dripping down his face. His whole body is involved, rocking with the rhythm, shoulders moving, head nodding. Pure focus. Pure flow. Marcus catches his eye and mouths ending. Ethan nods. He knows exactly how to end this. He's been planning it since he started. The music suddenly cuts to just piano. The band drops out, leaving Ethan alone for the final phrase. He slows the tempo slightly, returns to pure Chopin, playing the written ending of the Fantaisie Impromptu. But he adds one thing Chopin didn't write. At the very last moment, he plays an additional chord. Just one. A major seventh with added ninth, a jazz chord, bridging the gap between classical and jazz, between what he was taught and what he created, between the past and the future. The chord rings out, sustained by the pedal, hangs in the air, fades slowly, eventually disappears into silence. Ethan's hand stays frozen over the keys. His head is bowed. His chest heaves with exhausted breaths. For 3 full seconds, nobody moves. Then the ballroom explodes. The applause is instantaneous and overwhelming. Not polite charity gala clapping. Genuine thunderous applause. People are on their feet before they even realize they're standing. Hands clapping so hard they hurt. Voices shouting, whistling, cheering. Sterling is the first one up, leading the standing ovation. But within seconds, the entire room is standing. Every single person, even the skeptics, even the man who said this would be embarrassing, even the people who tried to protect Ethan from humiliation, all of them are standing and applauding. Sarah Williams is crying openly, not trying to hide it. She's clapping and crying and laughing all at once. Officer Johnson has his arm around his wife, both of them beaming. Catherine Remington is standing with tears streaming down her aristocratic face, nodding and clapping with the fierce pride of someone who just witnessed exactly what she hoped to see. Marcus sets down his bass and walks over to Ethan, pulls the teenager into a bear hug. "That was incredible," he says into Ethan's ear. "Absolutely incredible. I've never seen anything like it." The other band members cluster around, shaking Ethan's hand, patting his back. The drummer gives him a fist bump. The sax player says, "You made me look good, kid." "Thank you." But the loudest sound in the room isn't coming from the wealthy guests in their tuxedos and gowns. It's coming from the back of the ballroom, where a janitor in a worn uniform is clapping harder than anyone tears, and snot running down his face, not caring who sees him break down. James Brooks pushes through the crowd toward the stage. People make way for him, recognizing him from his earlier speech. He climbs onto the stage, and Ethan sees him coming. Father and son meet in the middle, and Ethan collapses into his father's arms. "You did it," James sobs. "You did it, son. Your mother would be so proud. I'm so proud." Ethan is crying too, all his composure gone now that the performance is over. "Did I do okay, Dad? Was it good?" James pulls back, holding his son's face in his hands. "Okay, Ethan. That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. You didn't just play piano. You told your story. You showed everyone who you are." The applause continues, shows no sign of stopping. People are taking out their phones, recording videos, posting to social media. Within minutes, clips of the performance are hitting Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. The hashtag #OneHandOneHeart starts trending locally. Sterling steps onto the stage and raises his hands for quiet. It takes almost a full minute for the crowd to settle down enough for him to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sterling begins, his voice thick with emotion. "I've hosted this gala for 15 years. I've seen incredible performances by renowned musicians, but I have never in my entire life witnessed anything like what we just experienced." More applause. Sterling waits for it to die down. "Ethan Brooks, you've done something extraordinary here tonight, but before I say anything else, I want to bring some people up here." He gestures to the back of the room. "Sarah Williams, would you please join us? Officer Johnson, Mrs. Remington." The 3 of them make their way to the stage. Others follow without being asked. The tech startup guy who questioned Ethan's future. The woman from the 3rd row. The music professor. Soon there are dozens of people on stage surrounding Ethan. Sterling continues. Each of these people said something tonight. Some were encouraging, some were skeptical. But we all shared one thing: we underestimated you. Even those of us who believed in you didn't fully grasp what you were capable of. He turns to address Ethan directly. You were rejected by 13 music schools. 13 institutions told you that your disability made you unsuitable for a career in music. And tonight, you proved every single one of them wrong. Not with words, with your art. The crowd erupts again. Sterling has to raise his voice to be heard. Which is why I'm making you an offer right now in front of all these witnesses. I will personally fund your education at any music school in the country that will accept you. Full tuition, room and board, all expenses. And if none of them will accept you after seeing this performance, then I'll hire the best private teachers money can buy to work with you directly. Gasps from the crowd. Ethan's mouth falls open. James's knees nearly give out. Furthermore, Sterling continues. Your father mentioned he works 3 jobs. No man should have to work 3 jobs to support his family. Mr. Brooks, effective immediately, you have a position in my company. Real estate maintenance management. Salary of $75,000 per year, full benefits retirement plan. Normal hours. No more night shifts unless you want them. James is shaking his head in disbelief. Sir, I don't know what to say. Say yes. Both of you. Say yes to the opportunity you deserve. Catherine Remington steps forward. Mr. Sterling, if I may add something, of course. She addresses Ethan. Young man, my late husband's school, the Remington School of Music, would be honored to accept you. We have a special program for advanced students that requires no formal admission process, just an audition. I believe we just heard your audition. You're accepted. Full scholarship. You can start in the fall semester. Ethan can't speak. His throat is closed with emotion. He can only nod. Marcus, the band leader, speaks up next. Ethan, I run a jazz workshop every summer for talented young musicians. It's selective. We only take 20 students out of hundreds of applicants. You're in if you want it. No application needed. Officer Johnson adds, my daughter Emily would love to meet you. I think you two would have a lot to talk about. She's been told she can't do things her whole life too. Sarah Williams steps up and takes Ethan's left hand. I run a non-profit that provides support and resources for young people with disabilities. We do mentorship, adaptive equipment advocacy. I would be honored if you would consider being one of our youth ambassadors. Let other kids see what's possible. The offers keep coming. The music professor wants to feature him in a lecture series. A recording studio offers free studio time. A piano manufacturer wants to design an instrument with him. A documentary filmmaker wants to tell his story. Ethan is overwhelmed, spinning to take in all these people, all these opportunities being thrown at him. His father stands beside him, one hand on his shoulder, both of them in shock. Sterling raises his hands again. I think we're overwhelming the young man. Ethan, you don't have to accept or decline anything tonight. Take time. Process this. But know that your life just changed. You walked in here as a janitor's son who nobody believed in. You're leaving as an artist who proved everyone wrong. He pauses, then adds, actually, one more thing. This gala was supposed to raise money for children's hospitals. But I think we can do something better. I'm pledging $1 million to establish the Rebecca Brooks Memorial Scholarship Fund, named after Ethan's mother, to provide music education to children with disabilities. And I'm challenging everyone in this room to match my donation. Hands shoot up around the ballroom. I'm in for $50,000, $100,000, $250,000. Within minutes, pledges total over $3 million. All because of one performance. All because a 17-year-old with one arm refused to accept the world's limitations. Ethan finally finds his voice. It's shaky, but clear. Thank you, all of you. I don't know what to say, except thank you. I've spent my whole life being told what I can't do. Tonight you've shown me what I can do, but I didn't do this alone." He turns to his father. "Dad, you sacrificed everything for me, worked yourself to exhaustion, never complained, never gave up. This isn't my victory, it's ours." James is full-on sobbing now, no longer trying to maintain any dignity. "I love you, son. I love you too, Dad." They embrace again while hundreds of strangers applaud. Marcus and the band start playing softly in the background. Not the jazz they played before. Something gentler. A ballad. A celebration. People begin to come up to the stage one by one, introducing themselves, offering congratulations, asking for photos. Ethan graciously accepts, still stunned, still processing. His father stands beside him, proud and protective, barely believing this is real. A journalist from a local newspaper pushes through. "Ethan, can I ask you a question for tomorrow's paper?" "Sure," Ethan manages. "How do you feel right now?" "What's going through your mind?" Ethan thinks for a moment. Looks around at all these people at the grand piano, where he just played, at his father's tear-stained face, at the band members who accepted him as an equal, at Sterling, who believed in him, at Sarah and Officer Johnson and Catherine, who supported him. "I feel like I finally got to tell my story," he says. "Not with words, with music." And people listened, really listened. That's all I ever wanted. To be heard. The journalist scribbles notes furiously. "One more question. What would you say to other young people with disabilities who have dreams that seem impossible?" Ethan's answer comes without hesitation. "Don't let anyone tell you what you're capable of. They don't know. They can't know. Only you know what's inside you. Find people who believe in you, even if it's just one person. Work harder than everyone else, and when they tell you no, when they reject you, when they say your dreams are unrealistic, use that as fuel. Let it drive you. Because the greatest revenge is becoming exactly what they said you couldn't be." The journalist's eyes are wet. "That's beautiful. Thank you." As the crowd continues to swirl around him, Ethan catches sight of the grand piano, the instrument that changed his life. He walks over to it one more time, places his left hand on its glossy surface. "Thank you," he whispers to it, to his mother, to the universe, to whatever force brought him to this moment. Then he turns back to the crowd, ready to face whatever comes next. Because tonight, Ethan Brooks stopped being a disabled kid with an impossible dream. Tonight he became an artist, a musician, proof that limitations are often just failures of imagination. The applause finally begins to fade, but the memory of this night that will echo forever. 3 weeks after the gala, Ethan Brooks sits in an interview chair across from a journalist at National Public Radio. The story of his performance has gone viral. The hashtag #OneHandOneHeart has been shared millions of times. The video of his performance has over 50 million views across various platforms. But more than the views, more than the fame, something fundamental has shifted in Ethan's world. The journalist, a woman named Amanda Chen, leans forward with genuine interest. "Ethan, your life has changed dramatically in less than a month. Can you walk us through what's happened?" Ethan smiles. He's more confident now, more comfortable being interviewed. This is his 5th major media appearance. It's been surreal, honestly. The morning after the gala, I woke up thinking maybe I'd dreamed it. But then my phone had 3,000 notifications. People from around the world sharing the video, sending messages of support. What kind of messages? Everything from "you inspired me" to "I'm crying," to people sharing their own stories of disability and perseverance. Parents of disabled children thanking me for showing their kids what's possible. Musicians saying they'd never thought about adaptive techniques. It was overwhelming in the best way. Amanda nods. And the scholarship offers. I understand you had more than just Mrs. Remington's offer. Yeah, it was incredible. Within 48 hours, I'd received acceptance letters from 7 different music schools. 7, including 2 that had previously rejected me. He laughs, but there's no bitterness in it. I ended up choosing the Remington School because Mrs. Remington was there that night. She believed in me before the performance went viral. That meant something. You started classes 2 weeks ago. How's it going? It's amazing. I'm studying piano performance composition and music theory. I have a practice studio with a real grand piano. My dorm room overlooks the music building. Sometimes I wake up and have to remind myself this is real. And your father Ethan's expression softens. Dad's doing great. He's working for Mr. Sterling's company now. Normal hours, good salary benefits. He calls me every day. Last week he told me he slept 8 hours straight for the first time in 3 years. That might be the thing I'm most grateful for. Seeing him finally able to rest. Amanda glances at her notes. I want to talk about the scholarship fund established in your mother's name. The Rebecca Brooks Memorial Scholarship Fund. It's raised over $4 million now. $4.2 million as of yesterday, Ethan corrects with pride. We've already awarded 15 scholarships to disabled students pursuing music education. And it's not just tuition. We're providing adaptive instruments, specialized instruction, whatever they need. My mom believed everyone deserved to make music. This feels like continuing her work. You're also involved with Sarah Williams's nonprofit now. Yes, I'm a youth ambassador. I visit schools, talk to kids with disabilities, do workshops about adaptive techniques. Last week I met a girl who lost both arms in a fire. She wanted to play drums. I introduced her to a drummer who plays with prosthetic arms. They're working together now. Amanda leans back. Some critics have said that your story, while inspiring, sets unrealistic expectations. That not every disabled person has extraordinary talent waiting to be discovered. How do you respond to that? Ethan considers the question carefully. They're right that not everyone is going to be a professional musician. But that's not the point. The point is that disability doesn't automatically disqualify you from pursuing what you're passionate about. It might mean you have to adapt. It might mean you have to work twice as hard. But it doesn't mean you should give up without trying. He continues, I'm not special because I can play piano with one arm. I'm just someone who refused to accept the first 13 no's. That's not talent, that's stubbornness. And anyone can be stubborn. Speaking of not giving up, Amanda says, I understand you've been contacted by some of the schools that rejected you. Ethan's expression becomes more complex. Yeah, 3 of them reached out after the video went viral, wanted to reconsider their decision, offered me acceptance and scholarship packages. Did you consider their offers? No. I appreciated the gesture, but actions speak louder than words. They had my application, my videos, my qualifications. The only thing that changed after the gala was that I became famous. I don't want to go to a school that only values me when I'm viral. I want to learn from people who saw my potential before everyone else did. That's a mature perspective for someone your age. Ethan shrugs. I learned it from my dad. He taught me that integrity matters more than opportunity, that you choose people who chose you when it wasn't convenient. Amanda shifts topics. Let's talk about your music. You're working on an album. Yeah, my first solo album. It's called One Hand, One Heart. Mix of classical adaptations, jazz originals, and some of my own compositions. We're recording it at a studio in Brooklyn. It'll be released independently in 3 months. And you have a performance scheduled at Carnegie Hall in 6 months, yes. I still can't believe that's real. Carnegie Hall. It was my mother's dream to play there. She never got the chance. So in a way, I'm doing it for both of us. What will you perform? I'm working on a piece I'm composing myself. It's called Letter to Mom. It incorporates elements from all her favorite composers, Chopin, Debussy, Gershwin, but filtered through my experiences, my story. It's my way of talking to her, of showing her what became of the little boy she taught to play. Amanda's voice is gentle. Do you think she'd be proud Ethan's eyes fill with tears? But he's smiling. I know she would be, because she never measured success by achievements or fame. She measured it by authenticity, by whether you stayed true to who you are. And I think I'm finally doing that. The interview wraps up with Amanda thanking him for his time. As the recording equipment is being packed away, she asks off the record, "What's next for you?" Beyond the album and Carnegie Hall. Ethan thinks about it. Honestly, I want to teach. I want to develop a method for adaptive piano instruction that can help other one-armed pianists. I want to write it down, systematize it, make it accessible. There are probably thousands of kids out there who think they can't play piano because they're missing an arm or have limited hand function. I want to show them how. That's ambitious. Maybe. But I've learned that most limitations are just problems waiting for creative solutions. Someone just has to care enough to find them. 6 months pass. Carnegie Hall, New York City. Ethan stands in the wings wearing a black suit borrowed from Sterling. His father is in the front row wearing a new suit Sterling insisted on buying him. Sarah Williams is there with her family. Officer Johnson brought his daughter Emily. Catherine Remington has front row seats. Marcus and the jazz band are scattered throughout the audience. The concert hall is sold out. 1,800 seats. Every single one filled. People who heard about his story and wanted to witness history. Young musicians with disabilities who needed to see possibility. Music lovers who appreciate artistry regardless of circumstances. Ethan's hands are shaking, not with fear, with anticipation, with gratitude, with the overwhelming knowledge that he's about to play on the stage where the greatest pianists in history have performed. A stage manager touches his shoulder. "You're on in 2 minutes, Ethan." He nods, takes deep breaths, thinks about his journey. From that hospital bed 10 years ago, when he thought his musical dreams had died with his mother and his arm, through years of poverty and rejection and doubt. To this moment, this impossible, beautiful moment. The announcer's voice echoes through the hall. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Carnegie Hall stage pianist and composer Ethan Brooks, performing his original composition, Letter to Mom." Thunderous applause. Ethan walks out onto the stage, his empty right sleeve visible to everyone, his left arm hanging naturally at his side. He doesn't hide his disability, doesn't apologize for it. It's part of who he is. He sits at the Steinway grand piano. The instrument is magnificent, pristine, the same instrument countless masters have played. He places his left hand over the keys. The audience quiets. The hall becomes so silent you can hear someone cough 3 rows back. Ethan closes his eyes, whispers, "I love you, Mom." Then he begins to play. The piece starts softly, a simple melody that Rebecca used to play as his lullaby. He plays it exactly as he remembers it, letting the notes float gently through the hall. Then gradually he begins to develop it, adding harmonies, introducing variations. The lullaby transforms into something more complex, more mature, while maintaining its essential sweetness. As the piece progresses, he weaves in fragments from Chopin's Fantaisie Impromptu, the piece that changed his life at the gala. But now it's completely integrated into his own composition. Not a quote, a conversation, a dialogue between his mother's influence and his own voice. The music builds in intensity, becomes more aggressive. This section represents the accident, the trauma, the loss. Dissonant chords, rapid angry passages, then silence. Emptiness, the death of hope. But slowly, painfully, the melody returns. Changed now. Sadder, but stronger. This is the section about survival, about learning to live with loss, about his father's sacrifice, about finding his way back to music through YouTube videos and a broken keyboard. The piece shifts into a jazz section. This is Ethan fully himself now. Not trying to be his mother, not trying to be Chopin, just being Ethan Brooks with all his unique experiences and adaptations and creative solutions. The jazz is confident, joyful, free. Finally, the composition comes full circle. The original lullaby melody returns, but now it's surrounded by everything he's learned. Classical technique jazz, harmonies, his own improvisational style. All of it working together. The past and present and future unified in one musical statement. The final phrase is the lullaby again played simply. Just the melody, the way his mother played it. The last note sustains, fading slowly into silence. Ethan lifts his hand from the keys, keeps his eyes closed, breathes. For 5 full seconds, the hall is completely silent. Then it erupts. 1,800 people on their feet, applause like thunder, shouting, crying, strangers hugging each other. This isn't just a concert, this is a shared experience, a moment of collective transcendence. Ethan stands and bows, sees his father in the front row openly weeping, sees Sarah pumping her fist in the air, sees Emily signing beautiful in American Sign Language, sees Catherine Remington standing with her hand over her heart, sees Marcus and the band giving him a standing ovation. The applause continues. 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes. People don't want it to end, don't want this moment to be over. Finally, Ethan raises his hand, and the crowd quiets enough for him to speak. "Thank you," he says, his voice echoing through the hall. "Thank you for being here tonight, for sharing this moment with me. This piece was my way of talking to my mother, of showing her that the lessons she taught me survived, that love survives, that music survives, that hope survives even when everything else is taken away." He pauses, collecting himself. 10 years ago, I was told I would never play piano again, that my disability made it impossible. I was told this by doctors, by teachers, by well-meaning people who thought they were being realistic. And I almost believed them, almost gave up. But I had one person who never stopped believing. My dad, who's here tonight. He gestures to James, who stands up. The crowd applauds him too. Dad worked 3 jobs so I could keep chasing this impossible dream. He never complained, never suggested I do something more practical. He just believed. And that's what made the difference. Not talent, not luck, belief. Someone believing in you when you can't believe in yourself. Ethan's voice strengthens. So if you're out there struggling with something that feels impossible, find that person. Find someone who believes in you. And if you can't find them, be that person for someone else. Believe in their impossible dreams. Because sometimes belief is the only thing standing between giving up and breaking through. More applause. Ethan bows again and walks off stage. But the applause doesn't stop. The stage manager rushes up to him. They want an encore. Will you play something else? Ethan smiles. Tell them I'll play one more piece. But this time I need some help. He walks back on stage and makes an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite some special guests to join me. Marcus Thompson and his band. Can you come up here?" Marcus and the jazz musicians make their way to the stage carrying their instruments. The crowd goes wild. They remember the videos of the gala. They know what's coming. "We're going to play something we've never rehearsed," Ethan announces. "Pure improvisation. Jazz standards. We don't know where it's going. Let's find out together." And for the next 20 minutes, Carnegie Hall becomes a jazz club. Ethan and the band trade solos, improvise melodies, communicate through music. It's loose, spontaneous, imperfect, and absolutely magical. When they finally finish, the crowd has gone from sitting formally to standing, swaying, clapping along. The barrier between performer and audience has dissolved. Everyone is part of the music now. Ethan takes his final bow, leaves the stage. This time he doesn't come back, even though the applause continues for another 5 minutes. Backstage, he collapses into a chair, exhausted and exhilarated. His father finds him there, pulls him into a hug. "You did it, son. Carnegie Hall. Your mom is dancing in heaven right now. We did it, Dad. All of us. You, me, Mom. Everyone who believed when it was crazy to believe." The celebration continues long into the night. Reporters interviewing, fellow musicians congratulating, strangers approaching with tears in their eyes to share how the performance moved them. But eventually, it's just Ethan and James walking through the streets of New York at 2 a.m, both too keyed up to sleep. "What are you thinking about?" James asks. Ethan is quiet for a moment. Then he says, "I'm thinking about that night at the gala. How scared I was. How it felt like my last chance. And how it turned out to be just the beginning." "What do you mean?" "I thought if I could just play that one time, if I could just prove I was good enough, then I'd be satisfied. But now I realize that performance wasn't the destination. It was the door. And there are so many more doors ahead." "That doesn't scare you?" "No. It excites me. Because I know now that limits are just invitations to get creative, that every closed door is just an opportunity to find another way in." James smiles. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned it from my dad, from my mom, from everyone who helped me get here." They walk in comfortable silence for a while, father and son, through the sleeping city. Above them, a plane crosses the night sky, its lights blinking steadily. Below them, the streets hold millions of stories, millions of people with their own impossible dreams. Somewhere in that vast city, there's another kid with a disability wondering if they'll ever achieve their dreams. Somewhere there's a parent working multiple jobs trying to give their child a chance. Somewhere there's a teacher or a mentor or a stranger who's about to believe in someone when nobody else does. And because of tonight, because of Ethan's story, maybe one more person will keep trying. One more person will refuse to accept someone else's definition of impossible. That's the real victory, not Carnegie Hall, not the applause, not the fame. The real victory is showing others what's possible, being the light that helps someone else find their way. Ethan Brooks, 17-year-old pianist with one arm, has become more than a musician. He's become proof. Proof that circumstances don't define destiny, that limitations can be transcended, that dreams deferred are not dreams denied. And his story is just beginning. 1 year after the Carnegie Hall performance, Ethan Brooks returns to the Riverside Hotel. Not as an intruder this time, as an invited guest. Sterling has asked him to perform at this year's charity gala, the same event where his life changed. But Ethan has a different plan. He arrives early wearing jeans and a comfortable shirt. No performance outfit yet. He asks the hotel staff to direct him to the service areas. They're confused, but comply. After all, he's now semi-famous. The video of his Carnegie Hall performance has been viewed over 200 million times worldwide. Ethan walks through the corridors. He remembers his father walking, carrying cleaning supplies, and pushing carts. He finds the break room where he waited that fateful night, sits in the same chair, remembers the fear, the desperation, the impossible hope. A janitor enters a younger man, maybe mid-20s. He stops when he sees Ethan, recognizes him immediately. "Oh, wow. You're Ethan Brooks." Ethan stands and extends his hand. "I am." "What's your name?" "Carlos. Carlos Martinez." "Man, I can't believe you're here. In the break room." He laughs nervously. "I watched your Carnegie Hall performance like 50 times. You're incredible." "Thank you, Carlos. Can I ask you something? Do you have dreams? Something you want to do besides this?" Carlos looks surprised by the question, glances around like he's checking if this is some kind of test. Yeah. I write stories, fiction. I've been working on a novel for 3 years. Have you tried to publish it? I sent it to like 30 agents. Got 30 rejections. They all said the same thing. Too risky. Not commercial enough. I should try something more mainstream, he shrugs. I'm starting to think maybe they're right. Maybe I should just accept that writing is a hobby, not a career. Ethan smiles. A year ago, I'd been rejected by 13 music schools. Told my disability made me unsuitable for a music career. Now I've played Carnegie Hall, released an album, and I'm teaching adaptive piano techniques to kids around the world. You know what the difference was between before and after? What nothing changed about my ability. Nothing changed about my talent. What changed was that I got one chance to show people what I could do. One night where circumstances aligned, and I could prove the rejections wrong. Carlos is listening intently now. So here's what I want to tell you. Keep writing. Keep submitting. And when you've exhausted traditional publishing, try independent publishing. Try online serialization. Try whatever it takes to get your stories into the world. Because those 30 agents, they don't get to decide if you're a writer. Only you get to decide that. Carlos's eyes are wet. Man, I needed to hear that today. Thank you. One more thing. I'm starting a foundation, not just for musicians, for any young person with a dream that seems impossible. Artists, writers, inventors, entrepreneurs, whatever. We provide small grants, mentorship connections. If you're interested, here's my card. Apply. Tell your story. He hands Carlos a business card. Carlos takes it like it's made of gold. I will. Definitely. Thank you, man. Seriously. Ethan nods and continues his walk through the service corridors. He stops by the supply closet where his father used to prepare for his shifts, runs his hand along the shelves. This building holds so much history for him, pain and triumph intertwined. Finally, it's time for the gala. Ethan changes into his performance outfit. Black suit, no tie, casual elegance. He walks into the same ballroom where everything changed. The room is packed again, though now many of the guests are here specifically to see him. Sterling greets him at the door with a warm handshake. Ethan, it's wonderful to have you back. This room has good memories for both of us. It does, sir. Thank you for the invitation. Are you nervous? Ethan looks around the ballroom, sees the same stage, the same grand piano. But now it doesn't intimidate him. It welcomes him. No, sir. I'm home. The performance begins, but Ethan doesn't play alone. He's brought 10 students with him, 10 kids with various disabilities who are learning piano through his adaptive techniques program. Ages ranging from 8 to 16. Some missing arms like him, others with cerebral palsy affecting their hand control. One girl is blind. One boy has only 3 fingers on each hand. Ethan introduces each of them to the audience, tells their stories briefly. Then, one by one, they play. Short pieces, simple in some cases, more complex in others. Each one showcasing that disability doesn't equal inability, just different ability. The audience is transfixed. Many are crying. This isn't just entertainment. This is transformation happening in real time. These kids who've been told what they can't do are proving otherwise. And they're not doing it despite their disabilities. They're doing it by adapting, innovating, refusing to accept limitations. After each student performs, Ethan joins them for a duet. His left hand supporting their efforts, encouraging them, showing them they're not alone. The message is clear: we lift each other up. We succeed together. The final performance is Ethan alone playing a new composition. He calls it Impossible Things. It's a suite that musically represents different impossible achievements throughout history. Flight, space travel, breaking the sound barrier, and woven throughout personal impossibilities. A one-armed pianist, a deaf dancer, a blind painter. The piece is technically brilliant, but also deeply emotional. It builds and builds, reaching a climax that feels like breaking through a barrier. Like the moment when impossible becomes possible, when the word can't loses its power. When he finishes, the standing ovation is immediate and prolonged. But Ethan doesn't just bow and leave. He walks to the microphone. Thank you all for being here tonight. A year ago, I stood on this stage terrified and desperate. I thought that performance was my one shot at proving my worth. But I learned something important since then. He pauses, looking around the room. I learned that I don't need to prove my worth. None of us do. Our worth isn't determined by what we can do or what we achieve. Our worth is inherent. We're valuable because we're human beings with dreams and hopes and the capacity to create and love. His voice grows stronger. What I had to prove was that limitations are often imaginary. That the word impossible is usually just a failure of imagination. That when someone tells you you can't do something, what they're really saying is they can't imagine how you'd do it. But their imagination isn't your limitation. He gestures to the 10 students sitting on stage behind him. These kids have been told what they can't do. Can't play piano, can't perform, can't have a career in music. And tonight, they proved those statements wrong. Not because they're exceptional, but because they refused to internalize other people's limitations. Ethan's message is gaining momentum now. Every person in this room has been told no at some point. Has been told they're not good enough, not qualified enough, not something enough. And some of you believed it. Gave up on dreams that mattered to you, accepted someone else's definition of what's possible for your life. He lets that sink in. But here's what I want you to understand. Those people who told you no, they didn't have all the information. They couldn't see your determination, your creativity, your willingness to work twice as hard as everyone else. They couldn't see that you'd find another way, a better way, your way. The room is completely silent now, everyone hanging on every word. So my message tonight isn't just for kids with disabilities. It's for everyone. For the single parent working 3 jobs who thinks they can't go back to school. For the middle-aged person who thinks it's too late to change careers. For the artist who's been rejected so many times they're ready to quit. For anyone who's ever been told they're not enough. His voice drops to almost a whisper, but it carries through the room. You are enough. Your dreams are valid. Your goals are achievable. It might not happen the way you planned. It might not happen on anyone else's timeline. But if you refuse to quit, If you keep adapting and learning and trying, you will find your way. Ethan looks directly at Sterling. Mr. Sterling gave me a chance when he had no reason to believe in me. But you know what I learned? He didn't make me successful. He just opened a door. I had to walk through it. I had to do the work. And that's true for all of us. We need people to open doors, but we have to be ready to walk through them. He turns back to the full audience. So be the person who opens doors for others. Believe in people when it's not convenient. Give chances to those who look different, who come from different backgrounds, who don't fit the traditional mold. Because the next person who changes the world might not look like what you expect. They might be missing an arm, or missing opportunities, or missing connections, but they're not missing potential. The silence continues. You could hear a pin drop. And if you're the person who needs a door opened, keep knocking, keep trying, keep believing in yourself even when nobody else does, because eventually you'll find someone like Mr. Sterling, or Sarah Williams, or Officer Johnson, or Mrs. Remington, someone who sees what you see, someone who believes. Ethan's voice becomes gentle now, almost paternal, despite his young age. But here's the secret. You don't actually need someone else to believe in you to succeed. It helps. It helps so much. But ultimately, the only person whose belief matters is yours. Because when it's 2 in the morning and you're exhausted and the dream seems impossible and every logical person is telling you to quit, the only thing that will keep you going is your own stubborn refusal to accept defeat. He smiles. That's what my dad taught me. Not through words, through actions, by working himself to exhaustion for my dream, by never complaining, by showing me that love means believing in someone's impossible dreams. And that's what my mom taught me before she died. That music comes from the heart, not the hands. That disability is just a different way of being able. Ethan's closing words are simple, but powerful. So here's what I want you to remember from tonight. Not that I played piano with one arm, that's just trivia. Remember, these limitations are negotiable. Dreams are achievable. And the only person who can truly stop you from becoming who you're meant to be is you. He pauses one final time. Don't stop yourself. The world will try hard enough to do that. Don't help them. Be stubborn. Be persistent. Be impossible to discourage. And when you succeed, reach back and pull someone else up. That's how we change the world. One impossible dream at a time. The audience explodes into applause, but it's different from the applause after his performance. This isn't just appreciation for artistry. This is people being moved, being changed, being inspired to reconsider their own abandoned dreams. People are standing, crying, hugging each other. A woman in the 3rd row turns to her husband and says, "I'm going back to nursing school. I don't care how old I am." A man near the back pulls out his phone and calls someone. "Dad, it's me. I want to talk about that restaurant idea you said was crazy." A teenage girl whispers to her mother, "I want to try out for the play. I know I stuttered last time, but I want to try again." Ethan has done more than perform tonight. He's given permission. Permission to dream again. Permission to try again. Permission to be imperfect and ambitious and stubborn and hopeful. Sterling comes onto the stage and hugs Ethan. That was extraordinary. Not just the music, the message. You've become quite the speaker. I just said what needed to be said, sir. That's what great speakers do. The gala continues with people lining up to talk to Ethan, to share their stories, to thank him. He listens to each one, remembers names, offers encouragement. This is his purpose now. Not just playing piano. Opening doors for others. Late in the evening, after most guests have left, Ethan finds himself standing in front of the grand piano again. Alone this time. He sits down, places his left hand on the keys, and plays quietly. Not for an audience, just for himself. Just for the joy of making sound. His father appears beside him, no longer in a janitor uniform, in a suit of his own now. Successful, rested, proud. "You ready to go home, son? In a minute, Dad. I just wanted to remember what it felt like that first night, when I didn't know if I'd succeed or fail, when everything was uncertain." James sits beside him on the bench. "Why remember that? Because I never want to forget what it feels like to be desperate, to need a chance, to be judged unfairly. I want to remember so that when someone comes to me someday looking for their own chance, I'll give it to them, the way Mr. Sterling gave it to me." James puts his arm around his son. "You're going to do great things, Ethan. You already have. But I think the greatest things are still ahead." "I hope so, Dad. I hope so." They sit there together in the quiet ballroom, father and son, surrounded by echoes of the impossible becoming possible. Outside, New York City continues its endless motion. Inside, two people who refused to give up sit peacefully, knowing that their story will inspire countless others to keep trying. Because that's what hope does. It multiplies. It spreads. One person's victory becomes another person's inspiration. And the cycle continues, impossible dreams becoming reality. One stubborn dreamer at a time. Ethan Brooks. Once a scared teenager with nothing but talent and determination, has become something more. A symbol, a reminder, a beacon for anyone who's ever been told they're not enough. And his message rings clear: you are enough. You always were. Now go prove it. As we come to the end of Ethan's story, you might be wondering what happened next. Let me tell you. 2 years after that return performance at the Riverside Hotel, the Rebecca Brooks Memorial Foundation has grown beyond anyone's expectations. It's provided over 800 scholarships to young people with disabilities pursuing careers in the arts. Not just music, visual arts, theater, dance, writing, film, every creative field. The foundation doesn't just provide money. It provides mentorship, adaptive equipment, networking opportunities, and most importantly, belief. Every recipient gets paired with a mentor who has succeeded in their field despite similar challenges. The message is clear. Others have walked this path. You're not alone. Ethan himself is now 20 years old. He's released 3 albums, toured internationally, performed at venues from Carnegie Hall to the Sydney Opera House. He's been featured in documentaries, given TED Talks, written a memoir that became a New York Times bestseller. But ask him what he's most proud of, and he won't mention any of those achievements. He'll tell you about the letters, thousands of them, from people around the world who watched his videos and decided to try again, to pursue the dream they'd abandoned, to believe in themselves when nobody else did. He'll tell you about Maria, the girl with cerebral palsy, who became a concert violinist using adaptive techniques they developed together. About James Chen, who lost both legs in a motorcycle accident and now competes in national wheelchair dance competitions. About Sarah Rodriguez, blind since birth, who just opened her first art gallery featuring tactile sculptures. He'll tell you about his father, James Brooks, who at 50 years old went back to school and is now getting a degree in social work. Who wants to help other struggling families the way people helped his family? He'll tell you about Marcus and the jazz band who still jam with him regularly. About Sterling, who's become like a second father. About Sarah Williams and Officer Johnson and Catherine Remington, all of whom remain active in his life and work. But most importantly, Ethan will tell you that his story isn't special. That there are millions of people out there right now facing impossible odds, fighting battles nobody sees, refusing to quit, even when quitting would be easier. His story is just one that happened to be captured on video, one that happened to go viral. But the real heroes are the ones whose victories happen in silence. The single parent who finally gets their degree, the person with disability who lands their dream job, the artist who finally sells their first piece after years of rejection. Those are the real stories, the ones that matter most. So if you're listening to this and you're struggling with something that feels impossible, here's what I want you to hear. Not from me, the narrator, but from Ethan, from his father, from everyone whose story we've shared today. You can do this. Whatever this is for you. It might not be piano. It might not be music at all. It might be going back to school, starting a business, leaving a toxic relationship, pursuing a creative dream, making peace with your past, building a better future. Whatever it is, you can do it. Not because you're special, not because you're lucky, but because you're human, and humans are remarkably good at adapting, at overcoming, at finding ways forward even when the path seems blocked. You'll need help. That's okay. Asking for help isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Find your people, your champions, your believers. And when you succeed, become that person for someone else. The world needs more people who open doors instead of closing them. More people who believe in impossible dreams. More people who see potential instead of limitations. Be that person. For yourself first, then for others. And remember Ethan's words from that night at the gala. The limitations others place on you are usually just failures of their imagination. Don't let their inability to envision your success become your inability to achieve it. Keep going, keep trying, keep believing, because somewhere out there, there's a ballroom waiting for you. A stage where you'll get to show the world what you're made of. A moment when everything will click and you'll realize that all the struggle was worth it. That moment is coming, but only if you don't quit before it arrives. So don't quit. Ethan didn't quit after 13 rejections. His father didn't quit during years of poverty. The kids in his program don't quit even when their disabilities make simple tasks difficult. And you don't quit either. Your story isn't over. In fact, it might just be beginning. Now go write the next chapter. The impossible one. The one that proves everyone wrong. We're all rooting for you.